Yes, I will be doing that. Are we ready to get going?
I think so. It's 3 o'clock. I think we should just go ahead and let her rip.
All right. Let's see. I will try to share my screen.
Okay, let me see. We made you the organizer, so hopefully, I think I've passed it off.
I think it has to be presenter. I don't know if he's presenter also. Okay.
All right. Are you guys able to see that?
Yes, it looks like we have your screen now.
Okay. Welcome back to the 2022 Jackalope User Group meeting. This session is the virtual network, What's Going On in My World session. So one of the great things about our user groups is the opportunity to learn and share things with a great group of people. Unfortunately, we are virtual this year, so we don't have those informal face-to-face encounters at lunch, breakfast, dinner, at breaks, or after a day of sessions with a cold, refreshing beverage. But we wanted to do this session to provide a platform for folks to share ideas, challenges, knowledge, and solutions, and sort of mitigate some of the virtuality here. So with that, I will get into the guidelines and tips. Each organization should select one person to speak. Each speaker will have up to 8 minutes to speak, and if you are shorter than 8 minutes, that's totally fine. The goal of the session is to capture topics your organization is facing and possibly identify others who may be a good resource for you. Potential topics include enterprise GIS vision, passive data considerations, pilots, the direction of where your traffic program is going, meeting federal guidelines, resources, resource challenges, traffic equipment considerations, turning movements, etc. And I know we are talking tomorrow about the new LRS UI, but Nevada did go into prod back in September, so that might be something for them to cover too. So maybe we'll just go down in alphabetical order, but start with BC, if there's somebody there that.
I don't know, is John on, and if he would like to share anything. And I will capture some notes and then I'll pull it together and then we'll also post those.
Yeah, I'm here. This is a Canadian thing that I have to go first, isn't it?
It's an honor.
No, it's nice to be here. It's good to hear from everyone. I was going to say I was pretty excited that it's only 4 more days into the NHL season, so that's great. And then it is kind of sad that Better Call Saul's over. It was an interesting ending, so I'll miss my little tiny chats with Kathy every couple of years about missing being down there, but I hope to be down there for the next conference. It's in person. I think kind of some of the things that we're still experiencing is traffic data monitoring creep into the traffic data program. We're sort of being asked to provide tomorrow's data today and kind of live and things that the traffic data program in BC just isn't set up to do. I remember years ago, I've heard a number of you guys talk about the traffic monitoring group being separate from the traffic data program group in your state, and if it did blend, it wasn't really great for either. And so I've really sort of fought to keep ours separate, but you know, we're still reporting out on COVID numbers with travel. We had a couple of really bad floods late last year, and then we've had forest fire issues the last couple of years. So our executive is always wanting to know what's going on, specifically with truck traffic, with moving goods across from Alberta and up from Washington State. Especially during COVID, it was tough getting stuff up through the States, so they really want to know those numbers. That's just kind of an ongoing challenge. And I think kind of the one thing that I wanted to put out there is we're using primarily Golden River M660 and M680 traffic counters in our permanent count stations, but we are noticing the age of them is they're getting a little vintage, and sort of need to come up with a asset replacement sort of program, and we've sort of been doing it on an ad hoc basis. And just if anyone out there has like something a little more formal in how they do it, is something that BC would be looking for. Resources are a challenge, right? Like our program is really small. It's just myself and a consultant, and I'm lucky that the consultant is as good as and strong as they are, because a lot is asked of us, but we're delivered for the most part. And again, it was interesting hearing about the streetlight bit, because that's we do have people that like shiny new objects and they think they're wonderful, but they don't understand everything about it. And so when they're trying to incorporate new types of data sources into our traditional methods of collecting data, which is short count stations and perm count stations, I seriously question accuracy and comparing an apple to an apple. So that's kind of where we are, I think.
Okay, great.
If I could just follow up real quick, what kind of counters do you have, John? I missed that.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, so the Golden River product,
Okay.
and it's M660, and the new ones are the M680. They've been a real workhorse for us for a long time. We haven't had any issues with them, so.
Okay, perfect. And really what I captured, John, that you're somewhat, one of the things you're interested in are, do any of the other Jackalope users, do they have some type of formal process when they're looking at replacing any of their traffic count equipment? And I would believe that would be true. That
Yeah,
many.
basically, yeah. Like I know some of the programs are a little bit bigger than mine, so have a few more bodies available to them for that type of thing.
Okay, I got that. Okay, that's good.
I think Spencer requested to go next.
Okay.
So if Missouri is ready, we'll have you go next, Spencer.
Okay.
Thanks,
Got it.
Drew.
You bet. You bet.
So some challenges that we're going through right now, we are in the early stages of upgrading our ArcMap to Arc Pro, which we have a lot of web services and applications that run off of that, and is going to be a year to several years process, depending on how quickly our IT staff moves. Which is causing us to have to rewrite a lot of the programs we use internally to check and process our data. We also have we just got a request for a proposal filled to use streetlight traffic data. So that, again, is a large undertaking, trying to make sure we have everything we need to give to them so that we can get our stuff set up as accurately as possible. Really enjoyed hearing Mark talk earlier today. I've learned a lot of good things about what we can get out of that data, and a few more questions to follow up on with Federal Highway after that. It will also require us to make a major investment in our continuous count program, because we know we have several areas of the state where we will not have good penetration for cell phone data or good coverage for the GPS data that comes with it. So that will require us to up our continuous site program by quite a bit, and create a clear and direct plan for the next 5 to 10 years to get that on track to better improve that data. I've talked to several other states, and I know they're having this problem too, but staffing, just as vacancies open up, we're having a ton of problems filling those with new qualified people, just even getting enough people to apply for open positions. So it's taking longer than normal to fill gaps and get people trained up to where we need them to be to hit the ground running. We are looking at a new plan to, in the past, when our continuous sites get torn up by projects out there on the road, especially our loop and piezo sites, we've got to go back out there and install them ourselves. And we're looking at a plan to possibly write these into our annual transportation improvement plan, to where those costs will be absorbed into some of the projects. And it will also allow us to try to plan out where some of these new sites are going to go, and hoping that that will help us quickly be able to replace sites that are down due to construction, and possibly be able to install new ones to better improve our data. And as far as the types of equipment that we're using right now, currently using mostly either Wavetronics or loops and piezos for our continuous counters, and still using peak pulsar road tubes for most of our short count program. That's all we've got.
I just want to make sure I captured something correctly, Spencer. So you are looking at putting in a replacement for any CCS or potentially new permanent sites, and having that go into an annual improvement program or your improvement plan, and or when they're doing any major reconstruction, major realignments, potentially integrate that cost into the project. Is that correct?
That's correct, because the actual cost for the equipment and stuff for a lot of these sites is pretty minor when you roll it into like a $5 million overlay project or something like that. So we're just we're trying to go through all the proper channels to where it's just an additional line item with some of these projects that contractors will have to bid on before they can win the bid for that project.
Okay, and I know Wisconsin does that, so hopefully some of the other states will outreach to you, because I think that is a good way to be able to incorporate and shift some of those costs, because it is the permanent sites are much more expensive than your short term. So, okay.
Yeah, it's the cost of the equipment and then the time that our crew has to spend not collecting short counts, but out on the road for months at a time doing site repairs. So it's hopefully have multiple benefits for us in the coming future.
Great. Thank you.
Okay, let's do Delaware next.
Would that be Luis? Is he?
I'm not
on?
sure that I see Luis on, unless I'm missing something.
Have you, or is anybody else from Delaware on?
I saw 2 Delaware people, so let me look.
Okay, yeah, you might have a.
We'll
Well, I
find
guess
you
if
if
they're
you're
not
out there.
speaking up, they don't want to.
And if they don't want to share, that's okay too. No problem.
Let's move down to Idaho next.
Okay. And I know Mark is here, and I think Vicky is at a GIS training. So I don't know, did they identify anybody to speak for Iowa?
Wait,
Well,
Idaho, Tony is here.
yeah, I can talk about Idaho. I can't say anything about Iowa.
Sorry about that, Tony.
And Ohio, I don't know if they're, I always get mixed up. But yeah, Margaret and Vicky and Jack are all out of the office today at different things, unfortunately, because they are the ones who have the big picture sort of knowledge. I think I got volunteered to talk because I've worked here at the department the shortest amount of time. We are also moving to Arc Pro. That's where Vicky is. She's on 4-day training. I've actually got it installed already. We did a project with High Street last year where they created a cluster analysis tool for us. So we'll be using that for the first time for our factor group stuff. I think Raymond has worked with turning movements, and Vicky has as well. So those we'll make sure that Vicky gets this presentation where she can look through it. Other than that, we don't have, from John, Raymond, and I's point of view, not a whole bunch of new stuff. We are putting in a string of new counters and radar heads north. We do have a pretty big project coming up where we're going to try to talk to some of the other entities around the states, the NGOs and whatnot in the cities, and see if we can incorporate their data, which will deal with having to figure out what formats the data are in and how we can work around that to get it all combined in one place. I think the last person mentioned Jack's been working with districts and the contractors to make sure that, you know, when they do tear up our loops and piezos and stuff, you know, those things get replaced, and there's knowledge of that going into projects rather than at the end of them. Somehow that process and stuff got a little lost along the way. So he's trying to reestablish that. But that's really all that's going on. Jack's retiring here in a while, so that concerns me greatly. But other than that, there's no talking him into staying. But that's really all that's going on. I'm sure Margaret would have more to say. She may be in tomorrow.
I think when I talked with her, she has a conflict. There's a leadership meeting and she has to attend that. So
Okay.
she won't be able to join.
Yeah.
Thanks, Tony.
So unless someone else mentioned the Packers earlier, I'm a Bears fan, and if Catherine wants to discuss game one of this season, I'm more than willing to do that as well.
Yeah, that was a eye opener for sure.
Tony, if I knew you were a Bears fan, I wouldn't have gave you so much time.
30 seconds for Bears fans.
Yeah, that's right.
All right, I think we're set for Iowa next.
Hey everybody, this is Mark Hansen from Iowa. I'll start off the discussion for the Iowa group because I'm at home working and I don't know who is there back in the office for sure. Maybe Jorge wants to jump in afterwards, or Noah or Jeff Von Brown. I wrote some notes down real quick here and I'll buzz through these for the group. Somebody mentioned the staffing difficulties, and we have experienced significant staffing difficulties with specifically our summer program. Actually, we had to scale back last year, obviously, because we couldn't fill all of our open vacancies with our summer temps. We hire over 40 summer temps to help us with the summer. And then this year also, we had some difficulties with the summer program. But like I said, we do scale back a little bit. Unfortunately, we don't get all the counts done that we have scheduled, but we still move ahead and get all of them done that we possibly can done. Another difficulty that we have, that I have a question for the group, is we collect a lot of MyoVision video counts. And I was wondering what the other states are using to post-process those video counts, if they're doing it automatically somehow with some software, or if they are doing it manually with people actually counting. Next item on my list, somebody raised the question about funding for the CCSs and the manual counts. The Iowa DOT has a fund that gets allocated annually that Jeff Von Brown and I draw from to replace equipment, be that the continuous counts stations or the equipment that we need for our short-term counts. So we balance the load with that. We give and take. We do rock, paper, scissors to see who gets more of that fund. Actually, Jeff gets more of that fund than I do for the continuous count stations, obviously. Joe talked about our turning movements. We do have those online if anybody wants to visit our website at iowadot.gov/maps. We have an interactive map there that has the traffic on the roadways. as well as the turning movement counts that we saw the PDFs of earlier today. That's all that I had on my list. I'm going to turn it over to Jorge, if he is still on, or Noah, if either of those guys wanted to say something. I don't see any unmutes coming. Jeff Von Brown. I don't know. Noah's still on. I don't see Jorge online still. Jeff Von Brown, I'll pass the baton on to you, sir.
I was gonna say, I don't have anything
Okay,
else.
can you hear me now?
Thanks.
Yes.
Oh, Jeff didn't have anything to say, but I think we have Noah and or Jorge, and I think he's in a conference room with a group of people, so we'll see who talks here. And I will go off camera and I'll mute.
Yeah, this is Jorge Zamora. Can you hear me now?
No.
Yep, we got you.
Okay. Yes, we are. I'm the coordinator for our short-term traffic counts. And just to piggyback on what Mark said, we just wrapped up our summer program, and yes, we did have, staffing issues that we've been having for the last several years. I know that we do quite a robust traffic program in the summer, but it's just something that we've been struggling with for the last 3 or 4 years, if not longer. One of the other areas that we're at a crossroads at right now is making possibly the switch from going to microstation to possibly GIS, as far as doing our mapping products for our traffic maps. So if there's, anybody out there that has some insight on, going from microstation to GIS, Arc Pro, that would be helpful. Beyond that, I don't have anything else to add.
Okay. Susie, did you get all the notes there? And thank you so much. I will appreciate it, Mark and Jorge.
And Drew, I got a note from Melissa because she's having some connection issues. So I can do hers when we hit Kentucky.
Awesome. Okay, great. We will move on to Kansas now.
Hello. Hey.
Hey, Bill.
This is Bill Hughes from Kansas. Let's see. I guess we are rolling out event type counters. We're using the peak pulsars, and that's something new for us. Currently, the software is putting out an incorrect PRN format, and so I was wondering, I will ask some of the other states that might be using it, are we just out of date, or is that how their software works? One of the other things we're finding is we've got a variety of radar counters we're using for the permanent counts now, partially because it's just we're using some operations data and some operations equipment. So it's something we're getting used to, but we're liking what we're getting from operations a lot better than we had, 10 years ago. Staffing challenges, of course. We've lost one of our long-term employees to retirement, and right now half of my field staff is disabled or out, so that's going to be hard. As far as federal programs, we already have a local road count program, so the Meyer requirements aren't going to be a problem on our end. There's probably some adaptation that's going to have to take place in the HVMS database for that, but we will be able to support it. Looking forward, we're probably going to be asking for IVR, individual vehicle record data from contracted counts, and we'll have to load that into Jackalope. So Jackalope will need to support in the future all of those fancy formats. And we also, like BC had noted, we are starting to get requests for almost weekly reporting updates on specifically construction changes or things like that. But, monthly is not doing it anymore. And that's all the points I had.
Okay, I think I got them all, Bill.
All right. Thank you very much. And then
Okay.
we have Kentucky.
Okay, Melissa, are you wanting me to read your email just in case? I want to make sure in case she's able to speak.
I can try to talk. Can you all hear me?
We can.
Yep.
That's perfect.
Okay, I couldn't hear the last call, but then it came back just in time.
Okay.
So we are facing the same issues as pretty much everybody else. Major staff issues. We haven't had a traffic counter in District 5 for 2 years now, which is the Louisville area. So we have a statewide contract where we can pick up anything at any time that we need, but it costs $200,000 just for me to get Louisville, and the ramps counted for the last 2 years. So that's not sustainable to fill our staff, and we're facing losing 2 more traffic count techs at the end of this year. We have the same problem in central office. We can't pick up anything new, any new requirements, or get anything extra done because we don't have enough time. And the other problem we're having is with our traffic count.
I think we're losing your audio.
I think so too. I was going to ask, can everybody hear?
We're losing
No,
Melissa.
she's gone for me.
Yeah.
Are solely on
Well, that's interesting. I'll go ahead and mute her. No offense, Melissa. Okay. Susie, I don't know if you know what she was going to go on to, but if she emailed something extra, if you want to speak for her.
Yep. She covered the staffing issue, but I think what we're hearing from some of the other DOTs also is the outdated equipment and having a contract that allows one company for purchasing. So for Kentucky, they're solely on the peak traffic counters, and they have a fleet of ADR 1000s and 2000s and some of the Pulsar counters. And they have very mixed data coming out of the Pulsar counter. So for now, they have discontinued their use on classification count sites. And we would be interested in hearing from any other state that has any good or bad experiences with the Pulsar, which I believe, Bill, you had mentioned, and a few others with regards to either the equipment, the Pulsar, and or the software for Pulsar. Let me see. And that's the last part of her thing. So it was the outdated equipment and some of the issues that they're experiencing, along with the staffing for Kentucky. So that's what I got, Drew, for Kentucky.
Okay, yeah, I think she just, I think she's gonna try to log back in here.
Oh, okay.
But in the meantime, should we move on to Larimer County?
Yep. Is Bill from Larimer on? Laura, Catherine, can you see, is he on?
I hadn't noticed, but unfortunately, it's just a bunch of initials.
I don't see him.
Okay.
Okay.
City of Madison? I thought Eric.
He was in, and then I thought I saw him leave. So let me see if
Yeah,
he's.
I did too.
Did Eric come back?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, let's move on to Minnesota.
Okay.
Hello, can you hear me all right?
Yes.
We can. Hi, Christy.
Hello. If I drop off, just message me and I'll put my stuff into the chat. But
okay.
Otherwise, so in our agency, last few years, I've had a huge push to use probe data, which is a lot of manual work for the traffic monitoring staff, just to set up the gates, doing the statistical and the QC work in the background. So the goal there is to find a natural point at which the effort we put in gets us the reward we want of keeping staff out of the really high volume and dangerous areas. we're currently trying to figure out how to get our local agencies to sort of wholesale buy into this, because in Minnesota, the AADT is used for allocation of state funds. So those groups are very, very interested in the ADT. And I think that the presentation this morning was a really good plain language background for the concepts of probe data. So we'll be sharing that with a few others. Part of the struggle with using the streetlight data is we have such a short time frame to really work with it, because they generally won't even make their annual set of estimated ADTs, even behind the scenes, available until early March. And so it's a tight turnaround time, but so far.
Christy, can I ask you clarification on that? So for the 2022 AADT data, when would that become available?
They will work with us behind the scenes to get it to us very early March of 2023.
Oh.
So you can't really
okay.
use the interface. So that would be my tip for anyone thinking about it, is you got to work with them behind the scenes, because you often will only be able to extract a certain number of gates at a time, and you wouldn't have access to it as early as if you were just working with our support team. So it's a little bit of a tight time frame, but so far we're making it work. Meaning as in we did it 1 year. So far.
Okay. Yeah.
It's fine. We were, it's pandemic, we're all virtual. I'm sure we can make it work another year. And part of that is really partnering with our local agencies in terms of needing to increase the number of continuous collection sites for that machine learning and for the validation, and really explaining to people how important the continuous program is, whether they're for or against mobile source data. And I don't think John is on. If he is, he can jump on. But one difficulty we've had, especially with the timing of our transition to length-based class with a pandemic, is, what bin lengths to use, what happens if you switch from 4 bins to 6 bins. Are we, shifting certain vehicles into out of the single unit into the combo unit, or out of passenger into single unit? And so I think there's been some conversations that Ian and John, mostly Ian, have been having, I think, with Wisconsin on what is sort of the Goldilocks number of bins and the lengths to use for that. Big question for us is, where do we go with our short duration equipment? A lot of the equipment we have is over 10 years old, and it does not produce a data file. So you just have a single number on a screen, which explains our dependency on the mech. So we do not have an asset replacement plan for short duration equipment. Continuous equipment, it's a little more organized in that we just use up all the money they give us, because continuous sites are so expensive to put in and maintain. So our plan seems to be that we get a few short duration counters to try out. Some of our more experienced field staff spend time testing them, and then once we think, oh, we think we can get this data into Jackalope, then we'll buy a few more, we'll train the field staff, and then we get to the point where we need to actually ask management for funding, which has been a little difficult. This past year, we finally started sort of tying our equipment to our SPNR funds, and hopefully we can sort of expand that. I think we've spent several years really driving home the message that you have to have the right equipment if you want the data to do all of this. And we think people are listening now, but we're hoping to capitalize on that and do a much larger purchase of equipment. But that is daunting. It is in Minnesota, it's sort of like if you're spending more than $5,000, you can't just direct select. your vendor, you have to go through this process of sort of not like going up for RFP, but it has to be a very low dollar amount for you to just direct select a vendor, which becomes really hard with equipment because it gets expensive very quickly. So go ahead. Do you have a question?
Nope. I was just saying, I thought you were wrapping up. I'm sorry.
Nope, I got 3 more bullet points.
Okay, go.
We are also finding that it is very difficult to find field staff, specifically the ones that have the technical skills for newer equipment. And site coding, file management has been very difficult. And then negotiating with the districts who hire them, the priority for the count program, and then safety concerns. My team, we do have a set of early adopters of ARC Pro. So far we've been happy with it. But it is, if you're used to ArcGIS, it's like learning something kind of new. Be prepared to use the help documents, search for tools. And we did find that the Esri training tutorials were pretty good. If you just follow those, you can learn a lot. We also have a lot of data requests from everyone concerned with what happened with COVID, to VMT reduction goals, crash office, rail office. So everybody wants more and more data. And then a tip for the transition from MicroStation to ArcGIS, which we did probably 12 years ago, is you really got to get people quickly used to not expecting your maps to look a certain way and for it to be more about information. So find applications that you like and try to mimic them. Get people switched over to using web maps instead of like PDFs. And then for a public facing website, keep it really simple so that they can sort of answer their questions. But then for more advanced users, create GIS data sets that they can just download and they can answer those more advanced questions. And that's what I have.
Awesome. That was great. Thanks for sharing. Okay, we had Missouri go. So Nevada, are you there?
I think we see some from Nevada, but I don't see Chris Wright on, and I don't see Mark Worcester on.
Okay. Let's jump down to Utah.
Hey there, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. How you doing?
Not too bad. Sorry, my voice is a little harsh at the moment. I'm just getting over a cold. So for UDOT, we've been working on moving over. Some of you might have some knowledge on some of our history with using P hardware, where we're using ADR 1000, 2000s in conjunction with Wavetronics units in order to basically keep us in one system. So we were still using TOPS to collect all that data. That led to a lot of issues with us as far as our length data. I mean, the volume data was coming through mostly fairly well, but the lengths weren't always one-to-one with what the actual Wavetronics heads were collecting. So over the past year, we've actually now pretty much moved over to 100% on Wavetronics on those and removed all of the peak hardware from those locations. And a lot of this has been done because we're actually working fairly closely with our operations group in order to utilize the same sensors and hardware and communication together. And that has actually helped us enable to add CCSs much quicker because their dollars go a lot further than what our SPR dollars go, and they've got quite a few more locations than what we have. But in addition to that, we've also been working with our regions. So UDOT split up into 4 different regions, and we work with each of the different region engineers and leaders to kind of help determine where is it they want to see our data at for CCSs. As far as I think I've heard the common question of folks saying that there's a lot of needing that data now, and we're obviously seeing that. So we're basically going straight to the source. Like, well, where is it you want to see this data at that we're not providing it, so we can provide that data. And then obviously the next question is how do we start serving that data up to them so they can easily access it. We've been kind of a length-based house for a long time in our CCS program, and we've been on the back end of trying to get a WIM program up and going, but we finally have some financial support on that, and we're starting off with basically getting our port of entries up and running, so that most of our port of entries are only collecting data in the outside lane. So we're looking at adding additional funds to get some of the inside lanes collecting data for us, so that way it's acceptable for TMAS. We're also going through the same thing where we're trying to put take the CCS information and try to put an asset value and life cycle and annual cost, and as well as adding that into rolling into performance measures for employees and being able to assess that throughout the year as they're like visiting locations and trying to figure out how do we start putting a dollar figure to this, so that way we can identify future needs and costs, as we've quickly gone from, I believe, 110 sites a few years ago to just under 200 now, fairly quick. Earlier this year for Jackalope, we went through a transition to moving the database from our Capital server hosted by our IT department up into the Google Cloud virtual environment. Unfortunately, they kind of dropped the bomb on us last second in the middle of HPMS and said it needs to be done within 30 days. So I'm grateful how much support I got from Catherine, Laura, and anybody else on the team that was able to spend time on that, because we went through some hiccups. They moved our, one of the things that we learned was I already knew that there's a database application and then there's the tables that store all the data. What I didn't know is that my IT group actually has there's two different IT groups that support both of those two different things. And so one was ready to roll before the other, and that's really what caused our main headache on that, and that might be unique to UDOT. But they ended up moving one server to LA and the other server to Iowa, and they didn't talk very well. So, but once they got both data sets together, it's been working very, very smoothly since then. It's a lot covered real quick. Was there anything else? I think that's it.
All right. Thank you very much, Nicholas. Wisconsin, you are up.
Hey everybody, this is Rob Howard. I am a Packer fan, just so that the Bears fans know that, should they have any interest. And like Utah, not quite like Utah, but we've been seeing some PDB data anomalies between Jackalope itself and our weekly refresh. So we'd be interested in hearing what others are doing.
Rob, can I stop you just a second? I'm sorry, but you're it's sort of garbled a bit. So I'm going to see if you start up again, if it's going to be a little clearer. I don't know if any of you others were having some problems hearing him.
It was a little garbled, yeah.
Yeah, okay. Rob, can you kick up again? I heard the PDB and the data, and I think you made some good comments either about the Packers.
Right. So we're seeing some PDB data anomalies.
So just what we have in Jackalope versus what we're getting in our weekly download some weeks are different, and we'd be interested in learning what others are using and how they're doing with access. I think we talked about it a little bit last year at the user group or the year before, but it'd be interested in hearing some more about what people are using for their public database and how they're accessing it. Was that clear?
Yep, thanks, Rob. Yep.
And we are currently considering a short duration count program kind of assessment, something we haven't done in a long time. We currently use a 3, 6, and 10-year cycle, and considering trying to go to a 3 and 6 year cycle to more align with federal requirements. What would that mean regarding number of counts to collect in a given year? If it's more because we're moving our 10-year counts to 6-year counts, with some of the staffing challenges that everybody's talking about, whether it's in-house or with consultants that do some of the data collection. Are we counting too many lower functional class routes or not enough maybe for Meyer? So I'd be interested in hearing what others, or talking to anyone, if anyone has done any kind of reassessment of their program lately, if they've had any of those similar challenges or just redone their program, looked at it differently and doing things a way that maybe has been better than prior. So that's another one we'd be interested in talking to others about. Looking forward, we're using IRD's IDEA product, an AI-based video traffic counting and classifying solution. So we'll be reaching out to HD to get a new reader for that. And let's see, what else? I think I had one more. Well, we've recently posted our traffic data on a GIS data hub for the public, so that kind of cut down on some of the requests we get. So I think that's it.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Rob. Next up is Wyoming, last but not least.
That is correct. Last but not least, here we go. We don't have any real changes going on. Any changes we're trying to make are contingent upon getting roads and highways propped up before we go that route. So our biggest issue is when IT shuts the servers off and Catherine or Laura or somebody has to restart Jackalope for us. So honestly, everything in Wyoming is pretty status quo. So I'm sorry to report that we don't have anything interesting or helpful for anybody.
I think you just want everybody to be jealous, Chad. I think that's it.
Jealous of us Bronco fans here. However, we did beat the 49ers, so that's a feather in our cap. That's like the only team we beat, though. So.
Okay.
Awesome.
So,
well, thank you, everybody, for sharing.
Yep. So what I've done is I've captured everything, and there's some common themes that are starting to filter up. And one of the things besides the staffing, which is a bigger challenge, but I think there were some questions about peaks pulsar counters. So if anyone is able to mention anything there on the pulsar, because Bill, you mentioned trouble with the software, it was incorrect file format, but then Christy, you were saying, I think, was there issues with the counter itself?
And Susie, also there's 2 comments in the chat you might want to capture or revisit.
Yep. So Minnesota is testing, and that must be, is that the counter, Christy?
For IRD, maybe?
That's the IDEA. It was mentioned by, was that Wisconsin?
Okay. For the IRD?
That they were going to ask for a reader for it. It's a short duration camera based. If you've been on some of the NatMec and like have you heard of like the Litron camera? It classifies based on images.
I think, Rob, I think she's talking to Wisconsin.
Well, just in general, they're very similar.
Okay.
So we have we got a ITHEA and we got a Litron, and we are testing both of them. And so if anyone's interested in because there's a big cost difference in what we're noticing between them.
Okay.
I will pass you off to John Hackett because that is his realm.
Okay. So since this is the first time we've really sort of done it virtual, which makes it a little more challenging, I have quite a few of the different comments in here, and I don't know as a group, and you guys tell us how you would like, how you think it would. Do you want to re-ask some of yours? I see some of the comments that I've captured, and so I brought up the pulsar. I think another one came up about MyoVision from Iowa. Mark was asking, are you guys, how do you do your post-processing? Because back in the day, MyoVision didn't allow any, I don't think we were allowed to post-process, but I know changes have come since then. So is anybody out there who uses a video, are they doing their own processing, or is there a software that helps you do it?
Yeah, I know that Idaho does, Raymond does MyoVision, but I don't know how he does it. So I do see Raymond on, maybe he'd be able to speak
Thanks,
to that.
Catherine. Okay, let's see if Raymond.
I'm here. The way I do MyoVision is, well, after I process it, I exported the full CSV file, and then I put the station ID into the CSV file and create the intersection for the MyoVision in Jackalope. I'm still testing Jackalope though, and so far I think that Jackalope is getting the numbers right on basic intersections.
I'm not sure if Iowa was the one that asked. Mark, were you speaking about turning movement, or were you speaking about really just traffic files?
Well, my main question was, how are people processing the video? If they're having staff watch the video and count the cars, the vehicles, or if they're using some other technology to process the video.
Oh, MyoVision processes the videos for us.
Okay.
Wonderful.
Sorry, I thought you were talking about the turning movements and the MyoVisions.
Okay, thank you.
In Missouri, it's been a while since I've talked to the districts who are the ones that actually handle MyoVision data. But the last time we spoke, they were using interns from the local colleges to process the video data. So not, completely resource free, but a very low cost to get unpaid interns to process it for them.
Oh, those were unpaid interns that were doing it?
Yes, that's correct.
Oh, okay, yeah, that is low cost then. I'm paying my summer staff to do it.
Okay. Paid interns, but low cost, right, Spencer?
They might be paid now. I'm not 100% sure.
Oh.
Maybe they get college credits for it. I'm not 100% sure how the exchange works.
And then I know, John, you had a question early on from BC, and something had to do with does anyone have anything more formal? And I think that was more formal in terms of replacement of your traffic counters. Is that correct, John?
Yeah, basically, yeah. Like at some point they age out. How do you guys determine a justifiable criteria to present to executive that these ones need to go, we need money for new ones, kind of thing?
So I know some of the
For us-
DOTs are using their SPR program for counter equipment replacement, calibration, and all the things they need to do there. So BC is not using, where do you currently get your funds from for counter replacement? Oh, okay, that is the question.
Yeah, my program gets X number of dollars per year. In theory, money is available to me. It just needs to be justified, and that gets to be the tricky part.
Okay. So what I'll do is when I put this out, if there's anybody who would respond to some of these questions, what they can do is they can outreach to that state, or maybe we'll do a survey and you can plug in, hey, yeah, contact me if you're able to, you know, give me some insight to this issue. I'm just glancing because there's some more questions in here, and I think some of them need to be, I know I did have a question for Minnesota, and Christy, you were talking about the length-based class and when you change bin lengths, and I know early on when Wavetronics came out and people had moved to, you know, the bin length, that was a huge question, and I believe Minnesota did a pooled fund study with SRF, and there were some recommendations that came out of there. And is that still out there or no?
You know, I don't know. I've been looking through my emails trying to find it because normally John and Ian would be the people to speak to it, but it's a little too late for them to still be on.
Okay.
We dropped them out. So maybe I would really like if maybe tomorrow, if there's downtime in between sessions,
Okay.
we could use
Sure.
this and just sort of let everybody know, because I know that there has been like some like questions coming back to us from people who are using like the federal data to say, why did your combo units or your single units go up so much? Was this due to the pandemic? And we're like, no, it's like a methodology change related to Wavetronics.
Okay, that was the
So
context of it. Okay.
yeah, it's sort of like we switched from 4 bins to 6 bins, but now it's like, well, now there's some fallout from switching to 6 bins.
Yes, yes, there would be. Yes, anytime changing, either increasing or decreasing, it will push some of those numbers somewhere else.
Yeah, and changing it is a big deal. You have to plan like you know, many months in advance. So if there's an opportunity when either John Hackett or Ian Vognes are back on tomorrow, that would be great.
Okay, that sounds good. I'm just going to go through does anybody else want to ask anything real quick or no? Otherwise, we can wrap. I will capture this. Drew, I'll get it. I think I'm going to have to listen to the recording so I can also make sure I'm capturing some things and then maybe check back with some of the DOTs with some of the, if I have a question before I summarize the whole thing. But a lot of good information here for sure. So let's get ready to wrap. I'm good for today. Tomorrow we are going to start again 7:30 Pacific time, and we will have a shorter day, no lunch, only one break tomorrow, and then the format for the second day is the usual format.